Hi, I'm Bhakti and I'm an end-of-life doula. My work is supporting people who are dying and their families, and I do that. What I call my work is holding space. So I'm holding space for the person who's dying and for their family. And holding space means just listening without any judgment to people who are going through difficult circumstances. And it's amazing how effective just listening is, because when we're fully listened to, it makes it easier for us to deal with our own emotions. And being heard is one of the things that's very helpful. So that's what I do, and I consider myself, I try to be as impartial as possible. Of course, I get involved in the situation, so, I end up loving my clients and their families, but I still provide that impartial presence which helps to guide them through a difficult time. So I trained to be an end-of-life doula in 2015, but before that I had already done some volunteer work for hospice and also for a place called the Dougie Center in Portland, which is a nonprofit that works with kids who have lost a parent or a sibling. So I had some experience working with end-of-life issues. I guess I should also mention that when I was 23 years old, I had a tubal pregnancy and it ruptured, and so I had a lot of bleeding and I almost died. We didn't know what it was at the time. And that experience really showed me how thin the veil is between being here and not being here. So for most of my adult life, I've had some interest in that topic, this topic. And before I trained to be an end-of-life doula, I had been working with seniors in their homes for 16 years, just helping them with the activities of daily living. And I really loved that work. It was very satisfying. I felt like I was really making a difference in people's lives, and they were teaching me so many things about the kinds of things that can go wrong with our bodies, for instance, and how resilient we are in dealing with those things. So that was kind of a lead-in to my doula work. And the other two experiences that also led me into the doula work were the fact that in 2011, I had two deaths of people close to me in my family. So first, my mom died in October of 2011, and then my husband died in December of 2011. So those two deaths really rocked my world, but they also were teachings for me about, in my mom's case, how much change is possible before you die. She was a very nervous person. She was always plagued by thoughts. She was kind of an obsessive compulsive personality type. And so I thought in my life I would never see her happy. However, before she died, once she was told that she was dying and she knew that she only had one thing to think about, and her family gathered around her to say goodbye, she was the happiest I had ever seen her. So death taught me that death can really, it's never too late for some change to happen, some miracle, as I think of it, to happen. Then the other death, my husband, was also very uh, interesting and difficult. He was very angry before he died. So he had always been this easygoing, happy-go-lucky person, never an enemy. But when he found out he was dying, he got very angry and, of course, took it out on the people closest to him, which was me and his brothers. So, but I learned through that process not to take the anger personally. Of course, that didn't always work. I sometimes did take it personally, but for the most part, I realized that this anger must have been with him for a long time, and he was getting it out of his system before he died, which I was very happy for. So we had one time the night before he died that his good friend was there, and we sat with him, and he was very anxious. So then he hadn't been sleeping through the night at all, and I had to get up with him in the night, every night. But that night, he slept through the night, and he was very peaceful. So in the morning, I called his friend to come back and to visit him again, because I wanted her last thought of him to be in that peaceful space. So she came back, and I think she really appreciated having that memory to take with her, because he died the same afternoon that she visited. So those experiences combined, along with the death of my last caregiving client, it kind of prepared me. I didn't realize at that time that there was anything called end-of-life doula work, but I was at a retreat in Mexico, in Puebla, Mexico, in 2014, and I saw a flyer on a post in the convention center where we were. The flyer was for an end-of-life doula training in the UK. So when I saw that flyer, I just thought, that's what I'm meant to do. I knew it. But I thought also, if I'm going to go to the UK to train, I'm going to need some money. So I, held that thought, and I had a little cabin on the Oregon coast for sale for a year and a half, and the next morning I got an email saying that there was a good offer on the cabin, and so I just felt like, okay, this is meant to be, because here are the means for me to go do this training. So I went to the UK twice and trained there with a group called Living Well, Dying Well. So I went to the UK twice and trained there with a group called Living Well, Dying Well. They were wonderful. And in the UK, the end-of-life doula work has been established for a lot longer than it has in the US. And they really trained their people and also supported them after they were trained. And the doulas formed a community and all supported each other. So I was really impressed with that model, and I'm really glad that I went there to see how it was working in action. But I realized that since I wasn't going to be staying there the rest of my life, I would have to come back to the US and study here. So I came back and I found the International End of Life Doula Association here, and they were training their first class of doulas outside of hospice when I found them. And the training was in New Jersey. Training was in New Jersey. So I went to New Jersey and was part of their first class of doulas that they trained outside of hospice. But then when I finished the training, I felt like, okay, I'm trained now, but I wasn't quite ready to start doing the work because I felt like I needed more hands-on experience. And of course, the people, the end of life, the International End of Life Doula Association encouraged us to get hands-on experience. And getting hands-on experience would help us through their certification process, which I wanted to go through. So I I was by then living in Seattle, and I went to Kindred Hospice and talked to them about being a volunteer for them, which I became a volunteer for them for 3 years. And the person who was the volunteer coordinator really understood the end-of-life doula work. So that was a big help to me because she assigned me not just people to visit on hospice, but people to vigil with on hospice. So people who were closer to death. And that experience really helped me get to work with clients and their families, patients and their families. And I feel like once I finished the certification process, I was finally ready to go out on my own and look for people to work with. My work with the dying person themselves involves having an initial meeting where we talk about their concerns and what they need. So sometimes what they need is to look back at their life and to see, what did I accomplish in this life? People wonder, what was this all about, and why is it, why is it ending this way? So we sometimes do life review and look back at their life and see what they've accomplished. But just by looking at that and enumerating the things that they've accomplished can make them feel a lot better. The other thing that we I facilitate reconciliations for them. If there are people that they are estranged from that they would like to clear the air before they die, we can arrange for meetings with those people. Or if that's not possible, if the people don't want to meet, we write letters to the people. Even if we don't mail them, it still makes the person who's dying feel much better to have their sentiments about that off their chest. We also plan who and what the person would like to be surrounded by at the time of their death. Do they want to die in their own bed? Do they want to die somewhere outside? Where would they like to be? And who do they want around them? And importantly, who do they not want around them? And often I arrange for another room for the family to gather while the person is dying, and then they can go in just one or two people at a time to have a last visit with the person, so that that it's not too. It can get when a person's dying, their senses are all heightened. So a lot of extraneous conversation in the room is very difficult for them. It's easier for them to focus on one person at a time, and kind of they're slowing down. And so it's better to have, and the family often is all coming from out of town, so they really want to talk to each other too. So it helps to have two rooms, one room for the dying person, one room for the family. But of course, the family wants to go in and have last talks with the person who's dying, and that is the best, that is wonderful. So after the death, well, I should say, back up just a minute. The other thing I notice is when family members go in to talk to the dying person, I usually come out and let them have their privacy. But other family members want to talk about their own grief, and they want to talk about all the deaths that they've experienced prior to this one, which when you're in grief, that's what happens. Everything sad in your life comes back to you. And so I hold space for the family members too to talk about those things, and it brings them comfort. After the person dies, if the family wants to wash the body or dress them in certain clothes or anything like that, we can do that. We can put flowers around the body or just make it really beautiful, and allow the family to spend some time with the body if they want to before someone comes to pick it up. The other thing that I do follow up with the family members afterwards, and let them talk about their grief if they would like. Sometimes we do a ritual which is kind of like a private funeral, I would say, private celebration of life, but it can be very particular to the people involved. It can address the specific aspects of their grief, like maybe they weren't very close to the person at the end, and that's part of what makes their grief more intense, or any number of things that they're experiencing. So the ritual is designed to memorialize the person who died, but also to deal with some of the emotions that are coming up for the person who's having it. So that can be for a whole family, or it can be just for an individual person. And I do offer a celebration of life. I can facilitate that if people need help planning it, or if they want somebody to officiate that. I've done that quite a few times, on Zoom and in person. So that's another service that I offer. Even though you have that in your advance directive, you have to qualify for death with dignity in Washington State.
There's a time limit.
And you have to have a terminal disease, and you have to be capable of taking the medication yourself. I always meet with young doulas that are coming up, or newly trained doulas. They're not always young, but I'm happy to meet with doulas that want to come into this field and share my experiences and find out what their interests are, perhaps do some collaboration with them. So it's something that I like to pass on, because I think it's really important work, and I would like to see it continue in the world. I don't have any grand plans for, I do sometimes think about creating a doula cooperative. I think that would be a really wonderful thing, but I don't have any current plans to do that, but that's something that I would entertain in the future. Another service I offer that is helpful for all the different people that I work with is I do Reiki. And Reiki is energy work, and it helps people to relax. And also with dying people, it can help with pain control. So I really think that this is something that is, well, it's something that I love to give, and people love to receive it, and I find it very helpful for people that I serve. Reiki it's a hands-on energy healing. It's the person is fully clothed and lying down, and I just put my hands in certain positions, and the Reiki flows. It's because we're all connected energetically. It's not me doing something to that person. It's the Reiki in me meeting the Reiki in them, and it really helps with overall well-being, and people tell me they sleep a lot better afterwards. So it's something that I'm happy to be able to offer people.
Okay.
Reiki it's a hands-on energy healing. It's the person is fully clothed and lying down, and I just put my hands in certain positions, and the Reiki flows. It's because we're all connected energetically. It's not me doing something to that person. It's the Reiki in me meeting the Reiki in them, and it really helps with overall well-being, and people tell me they sleep a lot better afterwards. So it's something that I'm happy to be able to offer. This is a book that I really love, and when I go to visit my clients, I often read it to myself, one page, some random page in the car before I enter their home. So for instance, just this is the page I just opened to right now. Knowing what to do is not as important as knowing when to stop doing it. Resisting the way things are keeps us trapped in a loop of doing and striving. If we believe our conditioned mind, there is never a time when we can stop doing. There is always more to do. If we trust our Tao mind, times to stop and rest appear like rainbows, surprising us in the cloudy sky. Pay attention to these times. It may be a glimpse of the moon partnered with the morning star as we make an early cup of tea. It may be noticing the bare tree branches against the deep blue of the sky. It may be the tiny pause between the end of an exhale and the beginning of an inhale. Life is filled with gifts of rest and renewal. The activity that captivates our attention in this moment can quiet the incessant chatter of the conditioned mind. At each moment, we can choose to focus on some simple bit of beauty or comfort in our surroundings. For now, there is the feeling of warm soapy water on our hands as we caress the bowl that held this evening's stew. Whatever we are doing right at this moment can be a place of renewal and rest. All we need to do is to sink into the gift of just this. It may be a glimpse of the moon partnered with the morning star as we make an early cup of tea. It may be noticing the bare tree branches against the deep blue of the sky. It may be the tiny pause between the end of an exhale and the beginning of an inhale. So the services that I offer as an end-of-life doula are quite a few. I offer caregiver support, so that would be for family caregivers or for professional caregivers who are finding themselves getting a little burned out, and we can either meet in person or talk on Zoom and talk about what kinds of things they might do to make their caregiving a little bit easier. And also, I just listen to what they're going through and hold space for that, so that they have a chance to process some of their own emotions and to feel heard, because they can't talk to they often can't talk to their families about what they're going through, and they also can't talk to the person who's dying about what they're going through. So it's helpful for them to have somebody who will listen and not judge, but maybe have some helpful suggestions. So that's one thing. Then I also work with families, because they can be, they are naturally very upset when their loved one is dying, and sometimes they have different ideas about what should happen next. So we often have family meetings for the family to talk about where they're each coming from, and to communicate with the dying person if that person isn't too far along in their process, so that everybody can get on the same page, or at least have a better understanding about where the others are coming from. So what I'd like to say is that it's an honor and a privilege to me to do this work. I really enjoy it. I love the people that I work with, and it seems that the feeling is mutual, and I'm just grateful that I've been led to this path, and that I have the privilege of serving people in this way.